No Fish Nick here. It's October 27th. This weekend I'm not going to be fishing. I will be upgrading the exhaust on my workhorse, my 2008 Nissan Titan. I started getting some exhaust leaks going on, so I broke down and bought myself a new exhaust system. So we have JBA stainless coated headers. I have Berk Technology B-pipes and a JBA catback exhaust system. And it will be getting a new tune from Cajun Tuning. Joe is going to be helping me with up rev tuning, and that's what's going on. Time for new exhaust. First step was to remove the fender liner. Well, actually, the first step was get it up on jack stands. I'm up on jack stands. I just removed the first inner fender liner. Has just standard screws and those pop out plastic guys. So far pretty painless. I did shoot some PB Blaster earlier on oxygen sensor. My truck's pretty it's like I said, it's 10 years old. It's driven in Wisconsin and upper Michigan, so it does see a ton of salt, so there's definitely rusty stuff, but not too bad considering, you know, I've seen a lot worse. So there she is so far. Okay, first step, jack stands and removing the inner fender wells to access the bolts, and I'll be coming in from the side, bottom, and top. Whatever I have to do, we'll get her done. Next step was I unhooked the O2 sensor, and then I was actually able, this is the passenger side, I was actually able to get my Milwaukee half-inch impact on there with one of these 22 millimeter O2 sensor. I bought this just for this job, and it's just a socket with a big cutout on it. Went over the wire, and I was able to get it. I mean, so far so good. Yeah, the impact definitely took it out with like nothing. Here's the O2 sensor. You have to be real careful with these. I've read they're, as long as you're careful with them and don't drop it or anything, it should be fine to reuse. So I'll be reusing this guy. One out. I have 3 more of these to go. This heat shield, I was able to get the little the little bolts out, except for that one. There's one there, if you can see it. That one is rusted, but the good thing is, just by rattling this, I think just working it back and forth, I'm going to be able to break that out, which is fine, because these are not going to be reused, these heat shields right here. So that's coming out and staying out. I did find one of my noise problems, like when I go through a drive-through at a restaurant or something, I hear this tinny rattle, and that's what it was. It was a little heat shield that goes around my Cadillac. The first Cadillac converter was the edge was rusted off, and it was making like a tinny vibration. So one of my noises I was starting to hear that's what it is. So if you have an older Titan and you're going through like drive-throughs and you can hear this like tinny rattle, it could be that heat shield. I would like to give one tip while I'm here. When you're working on old vehicles and stuff, I am wearing my prescription glasses today. Normally I would be wearing my safety glasses if I had my contacts in. At my regular work, we work with steel a lot, and when you get some metal in your eye, you know, if it just like grindings or something, and in my case I was working on my exhaust, if you get some rust drops into your eye, some piece of metal, here's a tip. Take like a really strong magnet. This is like one of the super strong magnets that I get off of, I buy from Amazon. They're pretty handy to have. You put it in a piece of cloth, a piece of paper, clean paper, and you put it by your eye, and it'll pull that, in my case, those rust flakes off onto the paper. The worst thing you can do is rub it and scratch your eye. So get a magnet, put it inside a piece of clean cloth, and then basically get it out of your eye like that. Works great. Works all the time. Guys at work use it all the time. They wear safety glasses, but they still get the grindings and stuff falling in behind the safety glasses. So there's your NFN tip of the day. Okay, I just was able to free up the heat shield on the driver's side. To get the oxygen sensor out, I was able to use an extension on the big Milwaukee 1/2 inch, and I was able to go through the brake lines there and get on that oxygen sensor, and the impact worked it out. It did jam up in my wrench, or in my socket here, but then I put it into one of the new bungs and turned it forward, and anyway, I got the oxygen sensor out without damaging it. Okay, for getting that shield out right here, I used my little 1/4 inch Milwaukee, and this thing's proven to be really handy. This is one of them wobble sockets for impacts, and I got the 3/8 adapter on there, and a small extension. So anyway, so far this guy is definitely handy, and same with the impacts. Everything's really rusty. I mean, look at my exhaust manifold bolts are pretty rusty. I'm gonna have to spray that up with some BB blaster and stuff, and anyway, they look pretty rusty, but so far everything's came out except for a couple of them bolts on the heat shield. I just pulled the heat shield right out of it. It worked. Okay, the hardest part I've had so far was getting the back O2 sensor clip apart. Holy cow, that thing was like in there. I was pushing as hard as I could. I was using a screwdriver to help. I did wind up, this helped a lot, a little robo pliers to squeeze that back clip and wiggle it enough to get it off that little holding pin. There's a little square holding pivot there. Anyway, wow, that thing was a bear to get apart. And that is the O2 sensor. Now the rest of this, I'm to the point where I'm going to cut this with a Sawzall. I am going to cut my exhaust right off with a Sawzall and remove the exhaust. So that's the next step. Okay, I cut it right off. The good thing is, you know, I didn't need to reuse anything, so these are all coming apart. I am going to take off this oxygen sensor now, and this is just here's one of the Cadillac converters. Those will be going to the scrap yard, and so will all of this, other than the oxygen sensor. So Sawzall, that thing did its job. I did chew up the blades. This blade's still good, but that one I just tried, didn't last too long. That was a cheap blade anyway. This one's a pretty good blade, the Bosch. This is the right side, passenger side. I'm just going to spray these up. I could not get the driver's side one out at this time. I started rounding the edges. So I'm just going to spray it up and try again tomorrow. So that's it for the rear O2 sensors for today. I'll get back to them tomorrow after I spray them down. Try it again. Okay, update is On my passenger side, I was able to get the heat shields off by cutting, by using a Sawzall. I was able to get in there and cut the upper cat off, and now I do have access through here, but the driver's side's a different story. I'm going to try to take it up through the top maybe, but in order to do that, I'm going to take my air intake off, my air aid, and to give me some more room going through the top. So that's where I'm at. Okay, update. I'm having a hard time getting the, let's see, getting had a bloody lip. What happened? I'm loosening up the engine mounts, backing them off over an inch so I can raise the engine up, give me some little more clearance. And I took the impact off the bolt, and then the socket dropped down and nailed me right in the lip. So far, the only injury is a fat lip, a little bit of blood. So okay, it's Saturday. Last night I loosened up the motor mounts. Now it's Saturday now. I jacked up the engine. I only put it up about a half an inch right now, and I'm going to try that. I did just pull the dipstick. I'll show you. I'll show you that. Let me turn on the light. Okay. Now the dipstick tube came out real nice from the side. It was down in there. I did have to sit and wiggle it back and forth quite a bit. I shot a touch of PB Blaster down there, and that did help. Before that, I used a can of air like you use on your computer. A can of air spray to spray the debris out from the socket. So that's where I'm at right now. Now it's time to take out the bolts. I'm going to start with the passenger side, and if you can see those bolts, let's see. Let me see if I can hold the light for you. Let's see. Yep. Those bolts right there are coming out. They're pretty rusty right there. That's what I'm looking at. Those are the manifold bolts, and I sprayed them with PB Blast yesterday, so hopefully that'll work. Here we go. Okay, it looks like we're in for a pretty big fight, because the very first one I had to heat up, and it took quite a bit just to get the first one out. So it's going to be a long day, because if that first one took that much effort to get to crack, yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough day. I used a breaker bar. I sprayed these yesterday, but they're pretty rusted in. So breaker bar and a cheater pipe on top of that, and then I even heated it. So okay, it's going to take a while, but we'll get her done. Last one on the passenger side. What I've been doing is using the breaker bar with different I'm using both. It's a 1/2 inch breaker bar, and this, what I do is I crack them loose. I did have to heat up 2 of them to get it to crack. Once I crack them loose, I go in there with my gear wrench, 14 millimeter, and I do use a cheater bar a little bit. I mean, you know, I do the little wrench on wrench to get it going a little better, and then eventually that takes, then I can do it pretty easy. But the studs, some of the studs stayed in, and some came out with the nut. So I have one more to do here, and this side will be done. Okay, I was in here. I got the manifold off, the gasket, and I'm using a brush to clean up everything. There was a lot of corrosion. The old gasket doesn't look too bad a shape, but I did buy new ones right from Nissan. Part number 14036. And these are original gaskets. That's what was recommended when I did my research. So that's where I'm at. Okay, I could not get the passenger side header in. I'm going to have to loosen up the motor mounts more. It's kicking my tail. This is definitely a tough job. Next update was I just got the last passenger or driver's side exhaust manifold bolt out, and believe me, it was not easy. I blew up my gear wrench. I'm using a 9/16 now. My 14mm blew out. I took a break for lunch and I blew a tire in my wife's car, so it's not been my day. But anyway, this side's off now, and we'll get that out. Next step is going to be trying to get the headers in, which is going to require tilting that engine. Passenger side on. The biggest deal is to make sure your motor mounts are loose enough. I kept going like half an inch, thought that was enough, wasn't enough. Then I'd have to go down there, loosen them another. I have like 3/4 of an inch. Wasn't enough. You need like over an inch of bolt on your motor mounts, and then jack the engine up. And I was scared about how much pressure I was putting on my engine, but it went. And all right, good deal. Oh, I tilted my engine sideways too. I actually took a handle and put it under my alternator, and I gave it a pull, and that tilted the engine enough to this side to get my header in. So okay, here's the problem I'm having. I can't get the old exhaust manifold on my driver's side off. It's hitting it keeps hitting the engine mount, the bracket that attaches right to the engine. So might need to take that off or loosen it up at least to get any further. Which sucks is the transfer case is right in the way. So anyway, I'll find an angle where maybe I can get at it, but I'm stuck right now. I loosened that bolt up so much down there that my engine mount stud also is not connected to that bracket right now. So I'm gonna have to realign that and get that going later once I get the header on. The arrow points up. Dark side goes against the engine block. Okay, headers are on. I had a heck of a time getting the engine to line back up. I took the engine bolt out too far, and it did shift a little bit, and I had to raise and lower a couple times to get it to go. It finally went. So now I'm putting the stuff back together on the engine, and going to start on the B-pipes. Okay, the rear oxygen sensors, I had to use a torch and heat up the base in order to free it up. So they're going to be going on the new Berk B-pipes. But anyway, I couldn't do it with just PB Blaster. They were in there. The fronts came out, but the rears, I had to torch both of these, the bases of them, to get them to free up. So otherwise I would have stripped the heck out of them. So that's where I'm at. B-pipes are going on, then exhaust. This is easy stuff compared to the headers. Okay, I'll make sure you do this before you get under the vehicle, because it's pretty tight fit. So it's much easier to do it out here than underneath the vehicle. just because it'll be easier. I am using a 22 millimeter oxygen sensor wrench. Now I couldn't get it out with this, but I can definitely retighten it with it. So that's what we're using. Okay, this is the fire up with just headers and a Y pipe. Bolted up loosely. I rolled the truck out of the garage, and now here, because this is a tow vehicle, you know, I use it for towing. I don't want it real loud, so I bought the ultrasonic resonator that I'm going to have to splice into the tailpipe, and that cuts out most of the loud noise and any drone. So that's what this is here. But I do have to do a little fabricating, so I'm going to have to cut a section of my tailpipe to get that to fit in, and I'm probably going to have to cut this end off of the tailpipe. I'm going to have to get rid of that. Anyway, so got a little fabricating. I'm going to have to measure, see how much of the pipe I have to cut off, because the resonator is going to take up space, and I want it to fit my hangers just right. So I'm going to have to do some cutting and fabricating here. I'm using these stepped band clamps for attaching the exhaust, where we can put it over the raised end, and they are stepped, so these things pretty nice, really nice. They clamp down real well. We'll find out, you know, as long as they don't leak, but they're pretty heavy duty. I've purchased these off of eBay. I think like $8 a piece. We'll see how they work. Okay, fabrication is done on the tailpipe. I wound up cutting off just about 8 inches of the pipe, and then on this section here, I cut the flared. There was a flared part, and it was just over 2 inches, and now the ultrasonic resonator slides right in there. You know, there it is. It just slides right inside, or actually the resonator slides over the tailpipe. Now everything's put together. I can't get it into the hanging bracket, so I mean, just because it's all everything up ahead of the muffler is full. So now what I'm going to do is unbolt the hanging bracket, put the exhaust in place, and then bolt this back up. So so that way the tailpipe right here, without unbolting that mount, I can't get that in there. So that's next step, and then I'll be done, and the exhaust will be on, and I'll just have to drive it around and tighten up the bolts a little later on the headers next week. Okay, now here's the fire up with the ultrasonic resonator in the tailpipe. Hopefully it's quieter than it was. There we go. Oh yeah. Definitely cut down on the growl, but you can definitely tell there's still something there. So cool. Okay, the truck is sounding great. I did get a service engine light on though, so it's time to enter my tune. I am dealing with UpRev. They specialize in Nissan tuning, and I'm working with a specialist, Joe from Cajun Tunes. So that's the next step, is tuning the truck.